Breaking news, the eNCA reveals the Mandela Memorial Sign Language interpreter was an accused killer. And mourners are now being turned away from park and ride facilities on this final day of Nelson Mandela's lying in state.
Long way, a long way, long walk to freedom. Let us walk a long way and work a long way together. Long walk to freedom. Let us walk.
Live from Johannesburg, this is eNCA. We continue our coverage of South Africa's farewell to Nelson Mandela. A very good afternoon to you. I'm Andrew Barnes. We start with breaking news this lunchtime. eNCA can exclusively reveal that the sign language interpreter at the Nelson Mandela Memorial was an accused killer. Thamasanqa Jantjie was charged with murder, attempted murder and kidnapping. eNCA investigative reporter Karyn Maughan has also unearthed that he faced rape, theft and assault charges. This poses serious questions about security arrangements at Tuesday's memorial service. Jantjie stood just meters away from world leaders, including US President Barack Obama.
At first, it all seemed fine. Here we see the so-called interpreter signing as US President Barack Obama delivers his speech at the Nelson Mandela Memorial. Obama is one of the most heavily protected men on the planet, but not in South Africa, it seems.
Thank you.
Also on stage, world leaders from China, Cuba, Brazil, India, and of course, President Jacob Zuma. It quickly emerged that Thami Jantjie was not a real sign interpreter at all. His signing made no sense, and he was dubbed a fake. The story went global, and Jantjie was portrayed as a joke. But this story took a serious turn when eNCA established that he was mentally ill. Jantjie admitted to us that he was a heavily medicated schizophrenic who has spent time in the Sterkfontein mental hospital. What he did not reveal, though, was his long criminal history. eNCA, through police and court records, has discovered that Jantjie has been charged with theft in August 1995, housebreaking in July 1997, malicious damage to property in April 1998, rape in September 1994, murder, attempted murder and kidnapping in May 2003. He was acquitted of the rape, while all other charges bar the murder were withdrawn. His only criminal conviction is for theft in 1995, for which he is recorded to have received a 3-year sentence. Court records reveal that the 2003 murder, kidnapping and attempted murder case against Jantjie and 2 other people was referred to the South Gauteng High Court in 2004. It was finalized in November 2006, but the court file for the case is empty. Jantjie has refused to comment on what happened to the case, and we are unable to confirm claims that it was dropped because he was found mentally unfit to stand trial. Zuma has himself championed controversial new secrecy laws in South Africa, and his government frequently makes use of the National Key Points Act to ensure so-called national security. So how then can such an elementary blunder be explained? Karyn Maughan, Johannesburg.
For more on this, we're joined by Karyn Maughan. Karyn, you sat down with this guy just yesterday. What's his reaction to all of this?
Well, it was interesting because initially when I first met him, I actually felt incredibly sorry for him. He was admitting that he'd suffered these violent outbursts. But when I started speaking to the people that had worked with him at the Boksburg Magistrates Court and started doing some scratching and running traces on his ID number, this horrific sort of criminal history emerged. Bear in mind that that story does not reveal that, in fact, he's been also a complainant in several assault cases from 2011 in which he allegedly got into fights with people and then accused them of assault. So this is a story that I think is just going to grow legs and go further and further and further. But when I phoned him yesterday and I said, look, we have information that you were accused of murder in 2003, our understanding is that you were declared mentally unfit to stand trial, and as a result you never were prosecuted for that. And he became quite irate with me and said, how did I know this highly personal information about him? And certainly from a records perspective, it's been very difficult to track this case down. The fact that the file is empty, the fact that we don't know who the co-accused were, the fact that the NPA is confirming the existence of this case but can't say what happened to it is all very disturbing.
All right, so beyond that, what else has the NPA had to say?
Well, they say they can confirm that the case in fact took place, but they cannot give us any, because the file is missing. We don't know if he was acquitted, which the police records reflect a not guilty or acquittal. But the police who've spoken to me say they don't have a mechanism on their systems to record if someone is declared mentally unfit. So it would be then recorded as a not guilty verdict. The NPA are unable to say at this point what happened, but we do know that he was referred to Sterkfontein, that he spent some time in Sterkfontein, and we can sort of see the basic skeletons of a suggestion that in fact he was found mentally unfit, referred for psychiatric hospitalization, was then released and summarily went and worked for the Justice Department.
This story, excuse me, making the government extremely uncomfortable. What have they said?
Well, this is the real problem here. We know that justice officials have confirmed to us that he was under investigation for a 1.5 million rand fraud in which he was alleged to have made false claims for interpreting work that he'd done for the state, which he had actually not done. And we understand that the investigating officer in that case was intimidated, that a key witness didn't want to testify, that nothing really happened with it. But so far, after 2 days of these increasingly damaging revelations, we have not heard a peep from government in response to the fact that they had an accused murderer on stage with a number of very high-level dignitaries. We are trying to get comment from them. The Justice Department keeps referring us to GCIS, but so far, after about 24 phone calls to Pumla Williams, who's the spokesperson that we need to speak to, not even a single response.
All right, it's going to get increasingly difficult for government to stay silent on this. It's just breaking here on eNCA. We'll have more details as soon as they become available. Karyn Maughan, thank you. You deserve to know more. eNCA.com